Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody who's been a part of making this all possible. It has been quite the juggle with so many things going on, but let's first start off with saying, thank you to Dr. King and his legacy. Thank you to his wife, to their family, and everything that they've done to create this moments like this today. Today being able to do a presentation like this is proof positive of the work and the countless efforts of those before us have done to provide a pathway for us to finish the job towards equity and finish the jobs towards unity. So again, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate everybody. I'm going to shout out the team and everybody who helped make this possible and help put this together. Without saying too much, I want to get right into it. So I think the way that we want to start this off, hello Vaughn, thank you Vaughn Marie for holding us down. Remember to say to Marie, people, it's Vaughn Marie, not Vaughn. I'm learning how to make sure that we take care of people and make sure that we say their names correctly and all that stuff. But this time I would ask you to absolutely go ahead and share the broadcast, get it out there to folks, let people know what's going on. I know this is a change of scenery. Usually you're used to me seeing me in the communal space and things of that nature. But I'm actually working out of the house today. Kids, life, all that great stuff. Again, shout out to my man, Sydney, always holding us down. Thank you to the King legacy and the family. Absolutely. Shout out to Donna from South Coast Leadership South Coast, excuse me. Just did a fabulous relaunch, put out a beautiful video from a lot of people in our community that are invested in what we do and how we're going to be holding things down in the future. So thank you to Leadership South Coast. Shout out to the lovely Samia Walker and all her endless, countless efforts that she puts in to help facilitate things throughout the community beyond just E for all, but just in her capacity as a human being. So thank you. No, man, thank you, man. I appreciate that. But thank you. We try to work tirelessly. I'm telling you, you had to realize what we had to do to pull this off. While there's so many different things, the numbers are up in the city. So, but we wanted to make sure that we pulled this off and honor Dr. King's legacy. So without further ado, I don't want to hold you up. I'm going to let you watch a cool video from the I Have a Dream speech. I'm going to watch the full speech. Then we come back, we'll have a brief discussion. If anybody wants to tap in with me at any time or join this conversation and reflect on your memories of Dr. King, by all means, while this video is playing, you can send a comment up and I'll be sure to inbox you the link so you can join this stream. This stream is not just about us. We want everybody from the village who can to join the conversation. Again, I remind everybody it's the time you can go ahead out and share and get it out, get the word out to the people. But first, we're going to start with the I Have a Dream speech from Dr. Martin Luther King. I hope you enjoy, and we appreciate you being here. Love and blessings.
To present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society. and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summit of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until that is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our body is heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. And some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities. Knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, The sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
So, as you can see, that was an incredibly powerful speech. I didn't expect for the Third Eye stream to stop. So at this time, you can go to the Communal Space page, or you can go to the Lions at I'm Still Ill YouTube page, and you can by all means still share this content out and get it out to people. But we will still keep rocking and rolling. Again, the surreal nature of that entire experience is the fact that there are so many similarities of things and trials and tribulations that we're still dealing with today. And, you know, one of the things that we have to sort out is we have made marginal progress, but where do we get to the point, especially with the advent of technology? You know, this was all happening prior to the technological boom. So how can we utilize technology to stop dividing each other and start bringing each other together? Because that's what we really need to be focused on. You know, there's a lot of work to be done, but there has been a lot of work done. And I never want to take away from, you know, people like Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., like Malcolm X, like Angela Davis, like so many people, Medgar Evers, Toussaint, you name it. There are too many names to say of people in our lives that stood up when no one else would, that were willing to make the sacrifice that no one else was. And I worry about us being in this age of postivism, as I like to call it, where we'll use social media to spread the message, but not do the work. And doing the work still matters in the real world. We can't change inequities in the metaverse. We can't change injustice by hiding in the metaverse. We won't be able to increase our humanity by hiding behind filters, by creating these illusions and these layers of reality to separate us from the things that we're actually struggling with and we actually need to face and work on. As a country, we've done a lot of fantastic work. Is our country perfect? Absolutely not. Is anyone perfect or anywhere perfect? Absolutely not. But the best that we can do is hold each other accountable when we're talking about in terms of humanity and equity and really providing justice. Because you know what? I used to say, there is no justice, it's just us. But after 10 years of putting in the work that we have in the community, after working shoulder to shoulder, hand to hand with people who are dedicated to ensuring that we do change the paradigm that our children will grow up in, I can say without a doubt that we do have allies that are strong-willed, but we have allies that work on different levels. All allies will not be able to participate the same. Some will go as far as to be out on the front lines with you. Some can only go as far as to having conversations with their own family members. No matter what it is, no matter how you do it, as long as you're pushing the positive message of equity and holding people accountable for ignorance, because we all suffer from ignorance. We all have biases. But do those biases that I suffer from, have they ever held anyone back? Have they ever stopped a people from feeling like they're worth something in this country? This is what we have to work on. But don't go anywhere, because we still have an excellent video that's going to be coming up in a second that is done by the incredible team of myself, Samia Walker, Vaughn Marie, and Sydney Murray. Again, I cannot express my gratitude for our team at Third Eye. I cannot express my gratitude for the wonderful community of New Bedford and the greater area. But we have to do a better job at understanding, including us as people of color, the nuances and having empathy. We have to watch those videos like we just watched just now and not just be angered by them, because rightfully so, we should look at it and understand that one of our leaders' lives was taken from us that could have really pushed this to the next level for us. But that's why there's so many of us, and that's why we have to have some sense of belonging and some sense of togetherness and some sense of unity and community. That's why when we hear statements such as, I don't see color, is the wrong way to look at it. In fact, I see color and I see all of it in its beauty. I think all of us are beautiful. I think all of us play a role and all of us are significant in our own different ways. So again, I take nothing away from the fact that some people think that they live in a colorless world, but that's not reality. We have to deal with reality, because saying that is creating another filter to just hide from what's going on. I don't care about your hue. As Dr. King said, I care about the content of your character. I don't care about the color of your skin. I care about the power of your soul, the power of your positivity, and what you want to put into the universe when we're dealing with these young people. I'm thankful every day that I came to a realization in my own life that I could amass and make a massive change in my life within a 10-year window. But not everybody's afforded that luxury or that ability to awaken into a new realm, to come out of the ashes like a phoenix reborn. Not everybody can make that turn. We won't be able to save everybody, but the ones that we can, the ones that we can put the love into, the ones that we can help is what's going to matter most, because they will be able to help one other person and one other person. We are fighting an uphill battle. It has been hundreds of years, millennia of unfair treatment all across the world for marginalized people. But it didn't just start there. Unfortunately, it's a horrible byproduct of capitalism. It's a horrible byproduct of the market, the free market, the trade market, all the way down to why we have sex trafficking issues. Because we allow the demand to dictate the morality of how we move. We have to be focused and steadfast on what we're going to step into the future. We have to understand the nuance and the totality of the dichotomy that we have in our culture. And we have to appreciate those differences. We have to appreciate those contrasts. The same way when I'm editing photography, the same way I have to adjust the blacks to get the perfect just right, the picture just right. I have to adjust the whites. I have to adjust the exposure, the hue and the saturation and everything in between. You know, it's surreal when I look at the science of how I deal with colors and how they mix and maneuver amongst one another when you're doing something as simple as photography. It's also surreal when you come to the point where you learn that there is a scientific explanation for our difference in hue. So why are we not having that conversation? We have a conversation about everything else that has nothing to do with the actual facts behind these different hues, our geographical locations. Instead, we'll argue about who's better than who. Instead, we'll argue about who's greater than who. Instead, some of us will be subjugated and shunned aside as if our lives don't matter. And then we wonder how we get into these times. I'm in a space where I'm thinking back to 2019 as we rolled into 2020 and we partook in a lot of these marches. I'm thinking back to that fateful Sunday night when I was down there in Boston and mayhem broke loose when the sun went down and a different crowd came, peaceful the entire day, but then a different crowd comes out at night, a different element comes out at night. And these are the people who I cannot even take blame. I do not want to make them feel like I'm judging them, because there are people who will not be as steadfast as I've been in the latter part of my life. Because prior, I resonated with Malcolm. Currently, I resonate with both of these men, because even that was a way to try to divide two of our leaders that were working towards the same goal. Might have had a different approach, but they're working towards the same goal. From Fred Hampton, from so many countless, Marsha P. Johnson, who absolutely changed the entire pathway, the entire journey for the LGBTQ plus community. Pardon me if I missed a few letters. There's a lot, but I love it regardless. And again, we have to think about the many, numerous roles that people of color have played in history, from invention to innovation to engineering to the sciences to the arts. We are not second-class people in humanity. We have created, we have inspired, we have motivated, we have had it stolen, taken away from us, and somehow still there are many of us that want to move in Martin's footsteps and do this through love, because we know we don't want to become what we dislike in the process of fighting for change. I don't want to create pockets of inequity. I don't want to look at a young white child and be dismissive of their experience. That's not what we're here for. What we're here for at Third Eye in the communal space is in the name. We're here to open your third eye and help you attain the knowledge and help you attain the community that you need to grow. And then we provide a space called the communal space where we can gather and convene and make things happen. We want to be about doing versus complaining. Sure, people need places to vent. Sure, people need things to let off their chest in all communities and all backgrounds. And that's what the communal space is about. It might be an Afrocentric space. You might hear African drums when you're walking there because you can feel the vibes. But it is for all of us to come together, as Dr. King has eloquently shown us, to make things happen in this world. So again, I do not want to hold you up. I thank you so much for being here. I have this video that we put together as a team, and I just want to thank everybody who was a part of this effort. Again, I cannot express my gratitude enough. And as I go through this process of looking at the world and looking at where we are, it really is really, really surreal to me how far we've come. But again, I want to thank you as we go into this next portion of our programming here, where we're going to get to MLK, a living legacy, as we like to call it. And what we did is I didn't want to take away from the totality of Martin's entire speech, Dr. King's entire speech. So we each chose a section of the speech that we wanted to talk about. And then in between that, we have time where we reflect on how we feel about those different sections of the speech. So please enjoy. And thank you for being here. And thank you for celebrating Dr. King with us.
I've been to the Mountaintop by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered this speech in support of the striking sanitation workers at Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee on April 3rd, 1968, the day before he was assassinated. I can remember when Negroes were just around, as Ralph has said so often, scratching where they didn't itch and laughing where they were not tickled. But that day is all over. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world. And that's all this whole thing is about. We aren't engaged in any negative protest and in any negative arguments with anybody. We are saying that we are determined to be men. We are determined to be people. We are saying that we are God's children and that we don't have to live like we are forced to live. Now, what does all of this mean in this great period of history? It means that we've got to stay together. We've got to stay together and maintain unity. You know, whenever Pharaoh wanted to prolong the period of slavery in Egypt, he had a favorite formula for doing it. What was that? He kept the slaves fighting among themselves. But whenever the slaves get together, something happens in Pharaoh's court, and he cannot hold the slaves in slavery. When the slaves get together, that's the beginning of getting out of slavery. Now let us maintain unity. Secondly, let us keep the issues where they are. The issue is injustice. The issue is refusal of Memphis to be fair and honest in its dealing with the public servants, who happen to be sanitation workers. Now, we've got to keep attention on that. That's always a problem with a little violence. You know what happened the other day? And the press only dealt with the window breaking. I read the articles. They very seldom got around to mentioning the fact that 1,300 sanitation workers were on strike, and that Memphis is not being fair to them, and that Mayor Loeb is in dire need of a doctor. They didn't get around to that. Now we're going to march again, and we've got to march again in order to put the issue where it is supposed to be and force everybody to see that there are 1,300 of God's children here suffering, sometimes going hungry, going through dark and dreary nights, wondering how this thing is going to come out. That's the issue. And we've got to say to the nation that we know it's coming out. For when people get caught up with that which is right and they are willing to sacrifice for it, there is no stopping point short of victory. We aren't going to let any mace stop us. We are masters in our nonviolent movement in disarming police forces. They don't know what to do. I've seen them so often. I remember in Birmingham, Alabama, when we were in that majestic struggle, they would move out the 16th Street Baptist Church day after day. By the hundreds, we would move out. And Bull Connor would tell them to send the dogs forth, and they did come. But we just went before the dogs singing, "Ain't nobody gonna turn me round." Bull Connor next would then say, "Turn the fire hoses on." And as I said to you the other night, Bull Connor, he don't know history. He knew a kind of physics that somehow didn't relate to the trans physics that we knew about. And that was the fact that there was a certain kind of fire that no water could put out. And we went before the fire hoses. We had known water. If we were Baptist or some other denomination, we had been immersed. If we were Methodist and some others, we had been sprinkled. But we knew water. That couldn't stop us. And we just went before the dogs and we would look at them. And we'd go on before the water hoses and we'd look at it. And we just go over on singing. Over in my head, I see freedom in the air. And then we'd be thrown in the paddy wagons, sometimes stacked in there like sardines in a can. And they would throw us in, and Old Bull would say, "Take them off." And they did, and we would just go in the paddy wagon singing, "We shall overcome." And every now and then we'd get in the jail, and we'd see the jailers looking through the windows, being moved by our prayers, and being moved by our words and our songs. And there was a power there which Bull couldn't adjust to, and so we ended up transforming Bull into a steer. And we won our struggle in Birmingham. The same message holds true today. We cannot lose hope and begin forgetting the true purpose of our fight. The peaceful fight must continue, and we cannot allow anyone to stop us from achieving what is rightfully ours. He used the powerful metaphor of a mountaintop to give people hope. Our people are climbing a mountain. Climbers have to train and take their bodies to extreme limits in order to see a view from the mountaintop. Their single goal is to make it to the mountaintop. Inevitably, they understand that with this journey comes struggle, pain, sacrifice, and sometimes death. They are not alone in their desire to reach the highest point. Climbers before them shared the same goal. Some made it, and many others died along the way. For those fortunate to make it, the last mile of the hike is the most brutal. Witnessing such atrocities sometimes fuels their desire to reach the top, because they believe that the viewpoint from the peak is worth the journey, even if only for a moment. Together, we are writing history's next chapter, sharing our vision for the world, and considering what responsibility and opportunity we might have to bring about that vision. From my mountaintop, I see a generation of children who want the equality that Dr. King dreamed of, a world where justice stomps out hatred, bigotry, and poverty. On my mountaintop, I cannot help but acknowledge the storms we've made it through and give thanks for the lessons learned along the way. From Dr. King, I recognize that in order to enjoy the view from the top, we cannot bypass the struggle it took to get there. Dr. King had been to the mountaintop, and he was hopeful for a better tomorrow, as am I.
We don't have to argue with anybody. We don't have to curse and go around acting bad with our words. We don't need bricks and bottles. We don't need any Molotov cocktails. We just need to go around to these stores and these massive industries in our country and say, God sent us here to say to you that you're not treating his children right. And we've come here to ask you to make the first item on your agenda fair treatment where God's children are concerned. Now, if you're not prepared to do that, we do have an agenda that we must follow. And our agenda calls for withdrawing economic support from you. And so as a result of this, we are asking you tonight to go out and tell your neighbors not to buy Coca-Cola in Memphis. Go by and tell them not to buy sealed test milk. Tell them not to buy, what is the other bread? Wonder Bread. And what was our other bread company, Jesse? Tell them not to buy Heart's Bread. As Jesse said, up to now, only the garbage men have been feeling the pain. Now, we must kind of redistribute the pain. We are choosing these companies because they haven't been fair in their hiring policies. And we are choosing them because they can begin the process of saying they are going to support the needs and rights of these men who are on strike. And they can move on town, downtown, and tell Mayor Loeb to do what is right. But not only that, we've got to strengthen Black institutions. I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money in Tri-State Bank. We want a bank-in movement in Memphis. Go by savings and loan associations. I'm not asking you something that we don't do ourselves. And so what does that passage mean to me? It means to me support. Support those who support you in doing humanitarian work, i.e. the right thing. It's the reason I'm here today. Doing the right thing when you're not getting paid. Or the only reward is helping someone you really don't know. Not waiting to give the shirt off your back, but providing a mental blanket for someone who doesn't even know they need it. Someone said I was an activist for reading this passage, which is an insult to the true activists like Martin and those before him and after him. What I am is active. I'm active in my community. of New Bedford and surrounding Massachusetts towns. My volunteer work with the Red Cross is proactive to reach out to different communities and learn, be taught about obstacles, traumas, the difficult discussions that we need to have, and what myself, the Red Cross, or the Greater New Bedford Health Center can do to address those issues and keep learning and forge a strong family. Everybody wants to be friends, I said, but the most important thing is family. The more time we spend together, we learn about each other, to help each other, we become family. Whether it's proactive support for non-English speaking patients, and I mean Quiche, Creole, both Cape Verdean and Haitian, Portuguese, Spanish, patients and disaster victims, those are the ones who need it most. And those are the relationships that we can learn the most from. People who don't look like us. LGBTQ, QIAAP issues such as blood donor equity for gay men, to name just a few. In the end, it's all about support.
Now, these are some practical things we can do. We begin the process of building a greater economic base. And at the same time, we're putting pressure where it really hurts. I ask you to follow through here. Now, let me say as I move to my conclusion that we've got to give ourselves to this struggle until the end. Nothing would be more tragic than to stop at this point in Memphis. We've got to see it through. And when we have our march, you need to be there. Be concerned about your brother. You may not be on strike, but either we go up together or we go down together. Religious context removed and forwarded to the next segment. After a short story surrounding a trip to Jerusalem with Mrs. King and an allegory about a man who was bleeding in the middle of the road and the choices we all face, and the most powerful statement come from a good Samaritan. And so the first question that the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But then the good Samaritan came by and he reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? That's the question before you tonight. If I stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to all of the hours that I usually spend in my office every day and every week as a pastor? The question is not, if I stop to help this man in need, what will happen to me? If I do not stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to them? That's the question. Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. And I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be here with you. You know, several years ago, I was in New York autographing the first book that I had written. And while sitting there autographing books, a demented Black woman came up. The only question I heard was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing and I said, "Yes." And the next minute, I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to the Harlem hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon, and that blade had gone through, and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that punctured, you drown in your own blood. That's the end of you. My parents were born in the Dominican Republic. I was born in the United States. I'm first generation here. And growing up, I was fully immersed in the Dominican culture. I mean, the language, the food, the music, everything. It's all I really knew. So as I started to get older, I started hearing the term Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, and I really didn't understand what that was. And it did take me a little while to really start wanting to know that part of the culture. I don't know why, but it did take me a little bit. And I mean, there's definitely still a lot to learn in the Hispanic community as a whole when it comes to the Afro-Latino and Afro-Caribbean heritage. There's a lot of learning and acceptance that needs to be done in the Hispanic community. And I think that's why it's so important to celebrate Black culture as a Hispanic woman or as a Latino, Latina. It's really important because it's a part of all of us. And if you really want to take a deep dive into yourself and know who you really are and where you come from, your background, your family, that's definitely a place to start. So, thank you.
It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, to move around in a wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in, and from all over the states and the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but one of them I will never forget. I had received one from the president and the vice president. I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I've forgotten what that letter said. But there was another letter that came from a little girl, a young girl who was a student at White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter and I'll never forget it. It said simply, "Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at White Plains High School," she said. "While it should not matter, I would like to mention that I am a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and your suffering. I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I am simply writing you to say that I am so happy that you didn't sneeze. And I want to say tonight, I want to say that I am happy that I didn't sneeze. Because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960, when students all over the South started sit-ins at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream and taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they are going somewhere. Because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. And if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been here in 1963 when the Black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Selma, Alabama, been in Memphis to see the community rally around those brothers and sisters who were suffering. I'm so happy that I didn't sneeze. And they were telling me, now it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what happens now. I left Atlanta this morning, and as we got started on the plane, there were 6 of us, the pilot said over the public address system. We are sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane, and to be sure that all the bags were checked, and to be sure that nothing would be wrong with the plane. And we had to check out everything carefully. And we've had the plane protected and guarded all night. And then I got to Memphis. And some began to say the threats or the talks about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Growing up in the inner city trappings, trying to navigate those times, trying to understand who my heroes are, who these legends are, who these icons are, what changes actually were made and implemented for me to be here and speak as freely as I am today. I'm thankful for Dr. King. I'm thankful for the headmaster, Charles McAfee, who took his time out and figured that making me read this during our school assembly every year, making me read the I Have a Dream speech during the school assembly every year, would sow a seed in me that has sprouted and lasted this long. I didn't get it in that moment. I was young, rambunctious, full of energy, in ignorance. But at the same time, as I grew, as I matured, as I became a better man, a better father, A lot of the times in this space, I worry about the perception of who I was versus who I am. But oftentimes I'm reminded Martin took his journey as well. Dr. King took his journey as well. That Malcolm X took his journey as well. That they came from similar backgrounds and similar adversity as I did. And they were able to turn that adversity into prosperity. They were able to turn that adversity into motivation and inspiration for our young generations. I am here today because of people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because of people like Malcolm X, because of people like Angela Davis, because of people like Maya Angelou, and the countless names and unsung heroes that fought diligently to provide the freedoms that we enjoy today. So when I hear young people talk about what have the generations before them done, everything that was needed for us to enjoy the freedoms that we have today. And it's now on you, the next generation, to not just talk about Black history, but to understand where we are Black presently and to build our Black futures, to secure our Black economies, to work together through these crazy times, to understand the nuance and the duality to life, to understand humanity, as we like to call it, H-U-E-manity. Because at the end of the day, life is nothing but a beautiful mosaic. And we're all a part of that. We are all a pixel in the bigger picture, but every single pixel matters in that bigger picture. I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening as we honor Dr. King's legacy. I would like to thank my wife, Samia Walker, taking time out of her busy day as an executive director as a woman of color on the South Coast, for coming along this journey, for bringing me along her journey, for reminding me of the incredible work of a Coretta Scott King, for reminding me of the incredible work of a woman that was there and helped cultivate a man in this position, and they worked together to create a better community. I would like to thank Sidney Murray for taking his time out of his incredible work that he does in working in diversity and equity and inclusion with the American Red Cross, with bringing awareness to the sickle cell plight that we have in our Black community, for always being a champion and an embodiment of what he wants to see in the world. I also would like to thank, last but certainly not least, our wonderful sister with us today. One of the sisters that actually helped me understand, and my brother Ace, who actually helped me understand the concept of Afro-Latina and Afro-Latino. I would like to thank Vaughn Marie for being here today and doing her reading. I would like to thank Vaughn Marie for being a powerful beacon of hope for all Afro-Latinas and Latinos in the community. But most importantly, I would like to thank you, because if you're tuned into this and you've made it to this part of this presentation, you are truly committed to making a change in our community. We don't care about praise. We don't care about names. We don't care about titles. And in fact, if there's one title that we cherish more than any other title, it is the title that is a villager. We're all villagers. Let's just make a better village together. Thank you for joining us this evening. I don't even know how to surmise what that was. Thank you. Listen, I'm blessed to have people like you in our lives, Carolyn, your whole family, the Burke family, your boys. I always tell you all the time, your daughter, you've done a beautiful job with your family, and continue to be a beacon of hope again for somebody like me. I fight a daily battle of dealing with mental health. I fight daily to try to be a better father, a better husband, a better person. Far too often during this journey, I'm tested more than ever. But I'm thankful for the people that I have in my life. I'm thankful for the lessons that I've learned. I never thought I would be the kid to move from a block to trying to own one. I never thought I would be the kid from hanging on the block and not giving a care to caring too much sometimes and putting my effort into building libraries and creating STEM and STEAM literature for children, things that I don't even know. Because that's the point. I'm trying to provide opportunities to young people I never had. I'm getting emotional now because as I sit here, I think about all of these young people. I think about my daughters. I think about my sons. I think about everything that we have to endure during these times. And I'm also thinking about the work that we still have to do and where we are in the world and how disconnected we are, even though we're more connected than ever, via our phones. And if you walk away with nothing, Martin sacrificed a lot for us. So many people. He's a representation of the hundreds of thousands of people who have sacrificed for us to have these moments. I never want to take advantage of the fact that these people's sacrifice put me in position to be in the mindset that I'm in today, and I cherish that. And I just want to continue this work. I want to continue doing what we do every day. It's hard. It's not easy. The last 10 years, going through a transformation and doing this work has been extremely hard. But I'm thankful every day, every single day, because I don't even know who I was before. I know who I am now, and I know what's needed to be done. We have a lot of great things going on this year for 2020. We have a lot of great things going on this year for 2020. A lot of great news, a lot of inspirational things to showcase. We're thankful for all the partnerships and the people who have realized our commitment and have realized how serious we are about getting this work done. I would like to share some of these comments that people are sharing. Again, I appreciate you all. This is amazing. Brandon, love you, brother, always. Yes, Carolyn is the queen, We make each other better, brother. Just having you to call to vent to let these demons out so they don't take over me and possess me again is strength enough. So I appreciate you for that. Thank you. I'm trying. I'm definitely trying. I say I'm trying every day. Only as sweet as you made me, babe. Only as sweet as you made me. Thank you. We just try to continue to be an inspiration, but be inspired by others. Love you, Jamelyn. I'm actually not getting out of it. Actually, you're closing out today's activity, actually. Ironically enough, I'm going to play your poem that you sent us because still to this day, it's a beautiful poem, and it's a poem that I want to play to my daughters as they continue to grow. So thank you so much. 2022 and beyond, that's right. I'm very, very concerned with what the trendy nature of the plights. I'm concerned with the mixed messaging. I'm concerned with the narratives that actually take away from our family units. And we have to continue to have these tough conversations because if we don't, we're headed for destruction. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic in any way, shape, or form. We have a lot of work to do. I don't want to keep you guys. I don't want to hold you up. We have a lot of work. There's about 2 minutes left before it's 8 o'clock. And I just want to say thank you again. I just want to say I appreciate everybody. Continue fighting the fight. Continue striving. Know that all of this work is for something. We might not be the actual people that live in that moment when the world has changed, but we can be the actual roots set in the ground for that tree to flourish. So I thank you all. I appreciate you all. I want to leave you with a beautiful poem for my sisters out there, from our lovely sister, Jamelyn. And then, you have a great day, and thank you for celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy with us. Thank you to Third Eye. Thank you to Communal Space. Thank you to the American Red Cross in Sydney mainly. Thank you to Ephora South Coast, the lovely ladies, the lovely queens, Vaughn Marie and Samia Walker for being a part of this. Thank you to Kerry, Mandy, the entire team. Thank you to everybody who's watched, tuned in. By all means, if this touched you in any way, please share. I have a hard time bottling my emotions, and I used to be a stone wall, but I'm happy to have these emotions. So yeah, we're going to go into this. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Love and blessings. Enjoy this last poem by Jamelyn as we sign off.
Mother's mother, the baby named Thought. She encouraged me to further seek, and so I sought definition in the words of her wisdom. She birthed crimson. My mother's mother, the baby named Thought. She encouraged me to further seek, and so I sought definition in the words of her wisdom. She birthed crimson-colored melodies that rooted themselves beneath our family tree and cultivated into what you see before thee, me. I plan to be like every woman and man, every heartbeat and hand, every eyelash and strand of hair that's placed me where I'm most serene. For I am 50% my family and my other half is a dream. To be
as she, circling this earth with the most angelic of wings. But while my feet still travel this land, I'll continue to sing. I know, sweet angelic soul, life is cold, but I've been bold. In your name I'll remain, a story told. I plan to live on after life's gone. I plan to write songs that linger on to babies born of mothers torn between fact and fiction. I plan to bless the mind with my divine vision of joyful children, because it is she, that sweet, angelic soul that planted wisdom in my existence. And with each passing day that may diminish amongst the light of a new morn, I'll be reborn into this prison called reality. But please, life, still challenge me and persuade me to kill them with kindness, because my mind is lethal. I've dealt with one too many people who are unable to see through the darkness of deception. I have spoken my piece to the belly of the beast with nothing but good intentions. I have walked fine lines in attempt to define the elixir of oppression. I am the equivalent of peace and blessings, duty or discretion. Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, and Sonia Sanchez. Your word shall live on way beyond these dimensions, like Sojourner's Truth, Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, and Harriet's teaching of lessons displayed through her determination for freedom. Strong sisters, I see us struggling in a society that labels us as lesser than. Independence doesn't consist of how many bills you can have paid by a man or how many rings you can rock on each hand. Independence derives from within the minds of those who can withstand the pressures of societal demand. You see, Facebook and Instagram doesn't epitomize where I stand or who I am, so why label me? And why should I entertain thee by being exactly what he or she would like me to be? I am the master of my own identity. So please, Jill Scott, keep...
I'm not too sure why that froze, but I'm going to get that video back. We are going to finish that poem because it is too incredible not to finish. Give me 1 second and bear with me. It's the only part about being tricky and doing this at home is the internet is a little trickier at home. But we are good to go. Let me pop this video back up for you. And again, I'll start about where Jamelyn left off. Absolutely incredible. Actually, I'll start from the top. It's fine. And then right after that, we'll be ending the broadcast. But again, I want to thank you for being a part of everything that we have going on here and continuing to strive towards all of this greatness. Again, let's get back into that video, share that back with you, and then, yeah. Let's see.
My mother's mother mothered a baby named Sod. She encouraged me to further seek, and so I sought definition in the words of her wisdom. She birthed crimson-colored melodies that rooted themselves beneath our family tree and cultivated into what you see before thee, me. I plan to be like every woman and man, every heartbeat and hand, every eyelash and strand of hair that's placed me where I'm most serene. For I am 50% my family and my other half is a dream. To be as she, circling this earth with the most angelic of wings. But while my feet still travel this land, I'll continue to sing. I know, sweet angelic soul, life is cold, but I've been bold. In your name I'll remain, a story told. I plan to live on after life's gone. I plan to write songs that linger on to babies born of mothers torn between fact and fiction. I plan to bless the mind with my divine vision of joyful children, because it is she, that sweet angelic soul that planted wisdom in my existence. And with each passing day that may diminish amongst the light of a new morn, I'll be reborn into this prison called reality. But please, life, still challenge me and persuade me to kill them with kindness, because my mind is lethal. I've dealt with one too many people who are unable to see through the darkness of deception. I have spoken my piece to the belly of the beast with nothing but good intentions. I have walked fine lines in attempt to define the elixir of oppression. I am the equivalent of peace and blessings due to your discretion. Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, and Sonia Sanchez. Your word shall live on way beyond these dimensions, like Sojourner's Truth, Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, and Harriet's teaching of lessons displayed through her determination for freedom. Strong sisters, I see us struggling in a society that labels us as lesser than. Independence doesn't consist of how many bills you can have paid by a man or how many rings you can rock on each hand. Independence derives from within the minds of those who can withstand the pressures of societal demand. You see, Facebook and Instagram doesn't epitomize where I stand or who I am, so why label me? And why should I entertain thee by being exactly what he or she would like me to be? I am the master of my own identity. So please, Jill Scott, keep doing your thing. Erica, revolutionize the scene. Lauryn Hill, continue spreading your wings and fly with me while I sing. Sister, you've been on my mind. Sister, we're two of a kind. So, sister, I'm keeping my eyes on you. 'Cause if not, then who? It's fact we walk our paths in different shoes, but sister, do believe I know what you're going through. 'Cause I too have struggled with an image that grew into a beast that increased into something so true. I was a modern day hypocrite out in the blue, equipped with two eyes and a circumcised view of you, me, and what I thought all sisters should be physically, but you see, beauty comes naturally. But I didn't know that. I thought my only source of attention was from brothers who spoke that rah-rah. You know, the ones who can't quite comprehend and have no plans to move further with success. My sister, I digress. 'Cause I freed myself from that unnecessary stress. I freed myself from that hopelessness to impress. I freed myself from that anguish to flex every muscle of sex that rests within my bras and thongs. That image of desire can steer us so wrong. My sisters, stay strong. We'll have our ups and downs and our journeys will be long, but forever we'll continue to sing the same song. I know, sweet angelic soul, life is cold, but I've been bold in your name. I'll remain a story told.
Thank you for joining us and have a fantastic night. Love you, love you, love you. Let's carry on the legacy. Let's keep putting in the work. You all are amazing, amazing, amazing. Love you, blessings. Again, thank you so much for rocking with us. It's a joy. It's a pleasure. I can't even call this work. You know what I mean? Like, really, at the end of the day, I just love building with people, and I love each of you that inspire me. So when you say, great job, Larnell, look in the mirror because you're a part of this process. Thank you so much. Love and blessings. Love to Dr. King and his whole family.